We begin with breaking news in Philadelphia, where law enforcement sources tell Fox 29 a DNA test confirms the body found Saturday morning in East Germantown belongs to 23-year-old Kada Scott. This is the 10 o'clock news. I'm Jennifer Lee. Kada was last seen on October 4th after arriving for an overnight shift at a senior living facility. Let's go out to Kelly Rule live at police headquarters tonight with the details on this devastating update. And Kelly, what are your sources telling you?
October 4th, 2025. A young woman leaves for her overnight shift at work, and within hours, she vanishes without a trace. Her phone goes dead. Her car sits abandoned in the parking lot, and the person she trusted most that night would become her killer. Before we dive into this heartbreaking story, if you're new to CSI Crime Archives, please hit that like button, subscribe, and click the bell icon so you never miss a case. We cover real stories about real people, and your support helps us continue to bring awareness to cases like Kada's. Now, let's get into what happened. Kada Scott was 23 years old. Let me tell you about her, because this wasn't just another statistic. This was a real person with dreams, with a future. She graduated from Penn State University in 2023 with a degree in communications. Think about that for a second. She had just started her adult life. Her father, Keon Scott, described her as creative, passionate about fashion. She had even designed her own clothing brand at one point and was looking into starting her own healthcare business. That summer of 2025, Kada tried something completely new. She entered her first pageant, Miss USA. Her father said she absolutely loved the experience and wanted to do it again. She was living with her mother in Philadelphia's Mount Airy neighborhood and working at an assisted living facility called The Terrace at Chestnut Hill. By all accounts, she was the kind of person who brought light into every room she entered. Her family later described her as having a beautiful spirit, showing kindness and care to everyone she met. But someone had been watching Kada. Someone had been planning something terrible. Let's rewind to January 2025, 9 months before Kada disappeared. There was another woman, another victim. A man named Keon King, 21 years old, was accused of kidnapping and strangling this woman. Now here's where the story gets absolutely infuriating. There's actually a TikTok video from that incident that surfaced later.
Go away, bitch. Don't come over here. Karen, call the cops. Call the... It's all these kids in here. Call the cops, you dumb bitch. He coming around the window. Go that way, Cameron. Yeah, bitch, go away, bye. Go away, bye. Yep, bye. Bye. Keon out here.
In the video, you can see King hopping a fence, walking up to a window of a North Philadelphia home. The woman recording is telling him to leave, telling someone to call the police. You can hear the fear in her voice. The video shows him walking to the side of the home, peering into another window, trying to get inside. What happened next? About an hour after that video was recorded, King allegedly kidnapped this woman right in front of her house, threw her into a car, and assaulted her. His own 2-year-old child was in the back seat during this attack. Eventually, he let her go. The woman survived. King was arrested and charged with kidnapping and strangulation. But here's the thing that makes your blood boil. The charges were dropped. Why? Because the victim didn't show up to court. Not once, but twice. And you know what? I get it. Victims of domestic violence often don't show up. They're terrified. They're threatened. They're manipulated. The system failed this woman, and because of that failure, Keon King walked free. He was out there, ready to do it again. Fast forward to early October 2025. On October 2nd, Kada Scott received a text message from a number she didn't recognize. The text said, "Yo Kada, this my new number." Kada replied, asking who it was. The person identified himself as Kel. Investigators later confirmed that Kel was Keon King. He apparently used multiple aliases. Sometimes he went by Kel, sometimes Elliot. But it was all the same person. Now here's where things get really strange and honestly disturbing. On October 4th at 10:07 in the morning, Kada sent King a text message that has baffled investigators ever since. She wrote, "Kidnap me again." King replied, "Better be up too." They made plans to meet later that night. What did Kada mean by that text? Was she joking? Being sarcastic? Or had King actually done something to her before? Investigators still don't know for sure. Some think she might have been joking around, not knowing the kind of monster she was dealing with. Others wonder if there was a previous incident that was never reported. It's one of those questions that may never have a clear answer. But what we do know is that those words would become tragically prophetic. Let's talk about October 3rd for a second because this is important. Around 11:30 at night, a food delivery driver in Philadelphia left their 2008 black Hyundai Accent running and unlocked while making a delivery. Bad decision, right? But what happened next shows you the level of planning that went into this. A man dressed in all black got into that car and drove off. That man was Keon King. He stole that car because he needed an untraceable vehicle. This wasn't random. This wasn't impulsive. This was planned. So now we get to October 4th, 2025. The day everything fell apart. Kada had been out to dinner with friends earlier in the evening. She came home around 9:45 p.m. She borrowed her mother's car to head to her overnight shift at the terrace at Chestnut Hill. Her shift was supposed to run from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. At this point, Kada and King had been texting. Between 9:25 p.m. and 10:12 p.m., King called Kada a dozen times. Think about that. 12 calls in less than an hour. That's not normal. That's obsessive. That's controlling behavior. Kada arrived at work around 10 p.m. A coworker saw her outside the facility. But this coworker noticed something was wrong. Kada appeared upset. She was on the phone, and the coworker overheard her saying, "I can't believe you're calling me about this shit." Kada was clearly frustrated, maybe angry. Then the coworker watched as Kada walked toward a dark-colored SUV parked outside. The SUV left immediately after. That was the last time anyone saw Kada Scott alive. At 10:09 p.m., Kada and King exchanged their final text message. It read, "CM when you hear. Call me when you're here." At 10:24 p.m., Kada's cell phone stopped transmitting a signal. Her phone went completely offline. 4 minutes later, at 10:28 p.m., surveillance cameras picked up that stolen black Hyundai Accent parking at Auberry Recreation Center in Germantown. Kada was in that car. She probably didn't even know it was stolen. She probably thought she could trust King. Sources later told investigators that Kada was killed within 20 to 30 minutes of leaving her workplace. Let that sink in. From the time she got into that car to the time she died, less than half an hour passed. The medical examiner would later confirm that Kada Scott died from a gunshot wound to the head.
New this morning, the Philadelphia medical examiner announcing Kada Scott's cause of death, a gunshot wound to the head. Keon King is accused of killing Scott and appeared in court Thursday morning for new charges, including murder, tampering with evidence, conspiracy, and abuse of corpse.
The next morning, October 5th, Kada's mother tried calling her. No answer. The phone went straight to voicemail. She called Kada's father, Kevin Scott, asking if he'd heard from their daughter. He hadn't. They tried calling again and again. Nothing. Kevin Scott told reporters later that Kada always had her phone with her, always kept it charged. For her phone to be completely off, going straight to voicemail with no text responses, that was definitely strange behavior for Kada. The family rushed to her workplace. Kada's car was still sitting in the employee parking lot, but her iPhone, her keys, her iPad, and all her other personal belongings? Gone. Something was very, very wrong. The Scott family filed a missing person report immediately. But while the family was frantically searching for Kada, Keon King was busy covering his tracks. That stolen black Hyundai Accent stayed parked at the Auberry Recreation Center for more than 2 days with Kada's body inside. Can you imagine? Her body was just sitting there in that parking lot while her family was putting up missing person posters, while they were organizing search parties, while they were begging the public for help. On the night of October 5th, surveillance cameras captured something chilling. King's registered gold 1999 Toyota Camry pulled into the parking lot at Auberry Recreation Center at 11:39 p.m. 2 people got out of the Camry. King wasn't alone. He had help. For hours later, at around 3 a.m. on October 6th, those 2 individuals were seen on camera removing a large, heavy object from the passenger side of the Hyundai. The object was consistent with a human body. They carried it toward the playground area, toward the abandoned Ada H. Lewis Middle School nearby. They buried Kada Scott in a shallow grave in the woods behind that abandoned school. Then they just left her there like she was nothing. But King wasn't done yet. On October 7th, just before 3 o'clock in the morning, King went back to that stolen Hyundai. He drove it away from the rec center. About 45 minutes later, around 3:45 a.m., that Hyundai was found completely engulfed in flames in West Oak Lane. King set the car on fire, trying to destroy any evidence. Firefighters and police responded to the 911 call. When investigators later connected the burned vehicle to Kada's case, they realized the car had already been towed to a junkyard and compacted. The evidence was destroyed. Meanwhile, Kada's family was living every parent's worst nightmare. Her father, Kevin, appeared on NBC's Dateline, desperately pleading for information. The family offered a $10,000 reward for information leading to Kada's safe return. The community came together. Hundreds of people joined search efforts. The Philadelphia Police Department even shut down their police academy and deployed 300 recruits to help search for Kada. Investigators started piecing things together. They analyzed Kada's phone records and discovered she'd been in communication with Keon King. They tracked King's cell phone and found it had been making multiple trips between a house on the 5500 block of Belmar Terrace and the area around the abandoned Ada Lewis Middle School. Police searched that house on Belmar Terrace. They found contractor bags, gloves, a hammer, and ammunition. 2 women who lived there were detained and questioned but later released. King wasn't there. The investigation also revealed something else disturbing. In the days before Kada disappeared, she had told family members and friends that unknown people had been harassing her on the phone. Was King one of those people? Almost certainly. But Kada never filed a police report. Maybe she didn't think it was serious enough. Maybe she thought she could handle it herself. We'll never know. On October 10th, police searched the Auberry Arboretum in Germantown. They didn't find anything that day, but they weren't giving up. October 14th, Keon King turned himself into police. He was charged with kidnapping, false imprisonment, stalking, criminal use of communication facility, recklessly endangering another person, and tampering with evidence. Police also announced they were looking for King's gold 1999 Toyota Camry with heavy front-end damage. They believed Kada had been in that vehicle at some point. Within hours of the public announcement, someone called in a tip. The Camry was found in a parking lot at Gypsy Lane Condominiums in East Falls. Police towed it for forensic processing. That same day, investigators returned to search the abandoned Ada Lewis Middle School. They deployed drones, K-9 units, and crime scene teams. And they found something. Kada's debit card. An iPhone case. Items that belonged to her. She had been there. But where was she? King refused to talk to investigators. He declined a police interview. His bail was set at $2.5 million. And remember those kidnapping charges from January that got dropped? The Philadelphia District Attorney's Office refiled them. Assistant District Attorney Ashley Toxilowski made it clear, "We believe there is enough to proceed, and we also do believe that this is a pattern for this person." But Kada was still missing. Days turned into a week, then almost 2 weeks. The family was starting to lose hope, even though they didn't want to admit it. October 18th, police received what Deputy Commissioner John Stanford called a very specific, anonymous tip.
Law enforcement sources tell me tonight that anonymous tip that led to Saturday's search was someone telling police to please go back to the former Ada Lewis Middle School, asking them to search for Kada again. And this time they gave a specific location in a wooded area behind the school. Sources also tell me the man in custody for Kada's alleged kidnapping, 21-year-old Keon King, is expected to be charged with additional crimes this week. A tragic update in the disappearance of 23-year-old Kada Scott. Tonight, law enforcement sources telling Fox 29 that a DNA test of a body found Saturday morning in East Germantown confirms that the remains belong to Kada. Sources say the test showed a 99.9% match to DNA collected from Kada's parents.
Someone told them exactly where to look. Investigators went back to the wooded area behind the abandoned Ada Lewis Middle School around 10 o'clock in the morning. And there, in a shallow grave, they found human remains. The remains appeared to be that of a female. The entire community held its breath waiting for confirmation. On October 19th, DNA testing confirmed what everyone feared. The remains belonged to Kada Scott. Her family released a statement that broke everyone's hearts. "It is with profound sadness that we share the tragic passing of our beloved daughter, Kada Scott. Our hearts are shattered. Yet we are deeply grateful for the outpouring of love, support, and prayers from people across the nation and around the world. Kada was deeply loved. Her light, kindness, and beautiful spirit will forever remain in our hearts. On October 22nd, the Philadelphia Medical Examiner's Office ruled Kada's death a homicide.
New this morning, the Philadelphia Medical Examiner announcing Kada Scott's cause of death, a gunshot wound to the head.
Shortly after, the district attorney's office announced murder charges against Keon King, along with charges for robbery, theft, abuse of a corpse, tampering with evidence, illegal gun possession, obstruction of justice, and related offenses. Kada's date of death was listed as October 18, 2025, the same day her body was found. It's possible she was still alive for some period after she was buried, or it's possible the medical examiner couldn't determine an exact earlier date. Either way, it's absolutely horrific. King was arraigned and is now being held without bail. His lawyer, Shaka Johnson, has not commented publicly on the case. But here's something really important. Police believe King didn't act alone. Remember those two people on the surveillance footage? Police are still investigating, still trying to identify King's accomplices. Philadelphia Police Commissioner Kevin Bethel made it clear at a community meeting. We continue to pursue anyone who helped, who concealed, who participated in this act. During the search of that house on Belmar Terrace, investigators interviewed two women. Court documents describe interviews with these women King allegedly lived with. Were they involved in helping him dispose of Kada's body? Were they involved in the cover-up? As of now, no additional arrests have been made, but the investigation is ongoing. The community's response has been incredible. Donations have been pouring in for the Scott family. People from Philadelphia and beyond have been dropping off food, gifts, and support. Mayor Sherelle Parker and Police Commissioner Kevin Bethel held a community meeting in East Germantown where about 200 residents showed up, expressing their grief and their concerns about public safety. Commissioner Bethel, a father of 3 daughters, said that as the search wore on, he felt at times as if he were searching for his own child. Councilmember Cindy Bass told the crowd that Kada could have been your niece, she could have been your friend. And she's right. Kada could have been anyone. She was just a young woman trying to live her life, trying to build her career, trying to follow her dreams. The case has also raised serious questions about the justice system's failures. District Attorney Larry Krasner publicly acknowledged that his office could have done better with King's previous kidnapping case. He called the decision to release King on bail in that case a failure that may have had tragic consequences. A really sophisticated approach to the case, Krasner said, would have been to include the TikTok video as evidence and pursue the case more aggressively even when the victim didn't appear. But that admission doesn't bring Kada back. It doesn't undo the trauma her family has endured. It doesn't erase the fact that this might have been preventable. There's also been concern about abandoned properties in Philadelphia. Kada's body was found behind a vacant school that had been closed for years. Community members and officials are now calling for these properties to be secured or repurposed so they can't be used as dumping grounds for crimes. As this case moves forward toward trial, there are still so many unanswered questions. What was the exact nature of Kada and King's relationship? How did they really know each other? Why did Kada send that text saying, "Kidnap me again"? Was there something that happened between them before that we don't know about? Who were King's accomplices, and will they ever face charges? What was King's motive? Was this about control? Obsession? Did Kada reject him somehow? And here's the bigger psychological question we have to ask ourselves. How does someone become Keon King? This is a 21-year-old man with a pattern of violence against women. He had already been accused of kidnapping and assaulting one woman, and those charges got dropped. He had pending charges for driving away from police, fleeing on foot from officers, driving without a license. This is someone who clearly believed he was above the law, that he could do whatever he wanted without consequences. What creates that mindset? Is it a lack of empathy? Is it a sense of entitlement over women's bodies and lives? Is it deeper psychological issues that were never addressed? And how many other Keon Kings are out there right now, walking free, waiting to strike? This case also forces us to confront an uncomfortable truth about our justice system. When victims of domestic violence don't show up to court, we drop the charges and move on. But what if we had better victim support services? What if we had advocates who could help scared victims feel safe enough to testify? What if we had a system that didn't require traumatized victims to repeatedly relive their trauma in court? Would Kada Scott still be alive today? The Scott family has asked people to honor Kada's memory by showing kindness and care to one another, just as she did every day of her life. They want her remembered for her light, her creativity, her beautiful spirit, not just as a victim, but as a whole person who had so much life left to live. Kada Scott should be here right now. She should be building her healthcare business. She should be competing in more pageants. She should be designing clothes. She should be living. But because of one man's violence and the system's failures to stop him, she's gone. This case is still developing. Keon King's preliminary hearing is scheduled for November. The investigation into possible accomplices continues, and the Philadelphia community continues to mourn a young woman whose light was extinguished far too soon. So here's what I want you to think about. How many red flags were there? King's previous kidnapping case, the dropped charges, his pattern of fleeing from police, the TikTok video showing him stalking his previous victim. All of these warning signs were there, documented, known to the authorities. And yet, King was free to kill Kada Scott. What does that say about how we value women's lives? What does that say about how seriously we take violence against women? And what are we going to do differently so this doesn't keep happening? Kada Scott's case isn't just a story about one murder. It's a story about systemic failures. It's a story about missed opportunities to intervene. It's a story about a young woman who deserved so much better from the world that was supposed to protect her. If you found this case as heartbreaking and infuriating as I did, please hit that like button and subscribe to CSI Crime Archives. We tell these stories because these victims deserve to be remembered. They deserve to have their stories told. And maybe, just maybe, if enough people pay attention, we can start demanding better from our justice system. Click that bell icon so you don't miss our next case. Leave a comment below with your thoughts. What do you think should happen to Keon King? What changes do you think we need in how we handle domestic violence cases? Rest in peace, Kada Scott. You deserved so much more.